afternoon, or good morning, good day, depending on where you are in this world. As you know, World War II has played a pivotal part in my life, in my family, and from what I gather, a lot of people that are interested in the sky and are also interested in what's happening in the world right now have the similar backgrounds. So maybe we're wide awake because of circumstances outside our control. So anyway, this is a bit of a connection of things. I will do future videos to give an update. For those that know of my circumstances, that is part of the plane my great uncle died in, this one here. That's him and part of his crew. He was the navigator. This here is an autographed photo of the Luftwaffe man that ended up with the Gold Cross that killed my uncle. This is him, Werner Hoffman. He didn't die until just before 2000, I think. He ended up living a very, very ripe life and became a pharmacist. So he lived, whereas my beautiful uncle, who is this gentleman here, this is the one that he had. They cut out when they were doing all the photos. That's him there. That's the plane that this gentleman shot down and killed my lovely uncle, my great uncle, and that's part of the plane. I have a few other bits and pieces. So that is the connection there. As to these ones here, this one here was Ken Adams, but his real name is not Adams at the end. He and two of his brothers were the first Jewish German to be introduced or accepted, because they migrated to England when they knew things was going bad. So he's the first. There was only 3 German-born RAF pilots in World War II, and this gentleman was one of them. Now you're thinking, what relation does that have to do anything? No, he had nothing to do with my great uncle, absolutely nothing. But I found it fascinating that he, even though he was a fighter pilot, you're back in the days when this is the plane, sort of type of plane, Lancaster, or Halifax, sorry, it was a Halifax that my great uncle was the navigator in. And to think that when these planes were going out over Germany or over France or wherever it was to drop their bombs, the fighter pilots would be the escorts, because they didn't have enough fuel to go too far. So they would go alongside these and sort of try to be dogfighting to stop all the Luftwaffe, this gentleman here, to stop him from shooting them down, so they could go and deploy their bombs, their payload. So, and he shot 3 RAF guys down on that night. Within 15 minutes, he shot 3, I think 2 Halifaxes and 1 Lancaster, because they were doing a battle or a sortie over Poland, over some ammunition dumps, trying to destroy the train, the distribution train basically for World War II for the Germans. And sorry, that's the cat crying because he's annoyed that I'm not paying any attention to him. But anyway, so that's a whole new story, and if people are interested, I can go into details on that and I'll do a video. But this one here, Gremlins, Walt Disney, Roald Dahl, and it says at the bottom he was a flight lieutenant for the RAF. And when you look at it, this is an original edition. I bought it on eBay. It cost me $500, I think. And it talks all about when the planes wouldn't work, and they'd say, oh, there must be a gremlin in the plane, and things wouldn't work. So to find that people that he got shot down and he ended up majorly burnt. He was a fighter pilot. He was like this gentleman here. He was like Ken Adams. They might have even been in the same crew together, training. Most of the training, I think, was done in Canada because of the cold climate, so they were able to acclimatise and also learn how to fly the planes in that cold climate, in the snow and in that type of areas that, of course, we don't have in Australia. So to find that those two, that's the connection between those two. But more fascinating is Roald Dahl as a Gremlins. It became a movie, didn't it? Where, you know, don't water them after midnight, and then they go and create havoc. But Ken Adams, he, believe it or not, he designed Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the flying amazing car, which was done through Mr. James Bond. So it's all linked. And he also, the gentleman from James Bond, whose name is just escaping me, and I do have a book on him as well and his life. It's in my cupboard, which Ian Fleming, which he designed all the sets. And so he was a set designer. He did Goldfinger. He did all of these, you know, which, when you think about it, they're all predictive programming for what bloody is going on right now. And so he was a flight sergeant or flight sergeant, because he's got the little thing at the top. So yeah, it's just amazing to think, you know, these people, you know, are still playing a major role or impact in my life. And so this is part of the crew. So there's my great uncle. I'm not sure who these guys are. This man here reminds me of something from a bad porno movie or something, I don't know. I don't know who they are. This is before he became a navigator. He was just training, because there's a 3-year training to be the navigator, and he did it in the old way where they didn't have any of the technology like they do now. You had to do it by the sky and the stars. So you had to be an astro navigator, which took an extra 6 months. And then they cut it out when the technology came into play. So he did it the hard way. So I have all of the things that he did, all the training he did. This is him when he was a young man. What a handsome fellow he was. Look at him. And this is 1940. So that's him back in England. He was a leader of the gang, as you can see. He was a very, 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 very handsome man. I used to look at these photos when I was little at my grandparents' house, and I used to go, who's that man? He's the most handsomest man I've ever seen. And I'm going to tell you something here. That's him. He was a boxer. You know, everyone in those days was a boxer. And so this is also, I think I scribbled on the back of it. I can remember vividly doing that. But look at him. Look how fit he was. What a handsome man. So fit. And he got shot down. He was born 1920 and he got shot down 1943. So he spent from 1940 to 1943 in the RAF, halfway in between London and Scotland, doing all of his training there with the 77 Squadron. There he is on the track. That's his writing. On the track, 1940. So he's training to get fit enough to be accepted by the RAF. Because it was like, if you don't sign up, you just get in the normal army. And he was like, hell, I'm not going to die with feet on the ground. I'm going to be up in the sky. So he had to train really hard. There he is again. He had to train really, really hard to get into the RAF, be accepted. Back in the initial days anyway. In the end, they took anybody, and I'll show you some photos of a guy that's cross-eyed. And I'm like, holy shit, he's cross-eyed. How can he be in the RAF? But they must have got a bit desperate in the end. So this is 1938, where he and his soccer team had won the Sandhurst in August 1938. And as you can see, he has one friend. Where is he? He and his friend, which, you know, and my dad, I asked all of my dad about all of this before he passed, which is why it's so important to ask those questions of your relatives, because we just don't know when they're not going to be here, and you'll have these questions and answers unknown. And so this gentleman here, this is back 1940, where they're training at the track, and that same gentleman is here. But he's not in the RAF. He's a sergeant in something else, but he's not in the RAF. See, there's my uncle with his navigator half wing. So that was his first, that was saying he was actually accepted in the RAF. And that was before they were able to put you into a squadron and put you into a position, whether you're going to be a bomb aimer, a pilot, an engineer, whatever. So he then got his half wing, and so that's that gentleman there. So they remained friends. So obviously they were friends before the war. They remained friends. Were stationed somewhere. Maybe he was ground crew. I don't know. But yeah. And that was the last photo of him when he got his special jacket, his flight sergeant jacket, and I thought he was the most handsomest man I'd ever seen. And yeah, and I'm glad I found out exactly what happened to him. I have all of his army documents. I have every sortie. I'll just go over here. This is the details of when he crashed, when they all crashed. So it was all in the paper because it was Hitler's birthday. Ha ha ha! Hitler's birthday. Everyone was there. So that's all about Mr. Buffhead. That's my dad with the book. I did a photo book for my dad. So that's my dad that I gave to him, showing, you know, all the sorties in there. Because in those days, to do one full rotation, you had to do 30 sorties, which is 30 flights in a war battle situation. And so I searched high and low, and I bought content in digital format, hoping that the information would be there from the Department of Defence, the DOD in the UK. Each time costed me £2.50, you know, and I found all of them. And of course the last one was when they failed to return. So I found every single sortie. These are just photocopies of what I got off the internet that I'd paid for and searched high and low, and then turned them all into a photo book. And it gives you a really good detail as to what happened on the day, what action they had, yeah. And what made it worse is that he actually was going to volunteer again after the 30. He could have gone back home because he'd done his time. He'd served his penance, as you'd say, but he was so let's just say he thought it was so righteous, and thought it was just so important that his life was not worth if there was no freedom for the people. And this is where I get my strength from, and what I'm doing online, and why I am not going to bow down. I will not bow, I will not bend, I will not submit to tyrants, because my great uncle, who's in all of this, all these times he nearly died, and then the final time he did, where, you know, even upon death he was humiliated. But anyway, so this is them all under a big Halifax here, or was it no, this is a Lancaster. So that he's in there somewhere, don't ask me which one, but yeah, because the 77 Squadron wasn't a huge crew, but yeah, so to find all of this, as you can see, that's that photo there, that's him. Just got tidied up a bit. My big sister did this, but he was a flight sergeant. So back then, when she did this, you know, 30 years ago, 40 years, 35 years ago, she didn't know that he was a flight sergeant. But I found out all the paperwork, and I did go to the Comarak. I did go to all of that. I will go to anything that, you know, so yeah, there he was killed. Crashed at Pacewalk. But anyway, that's just a little update on my family, on my story, my connection to everything here. And so to find him, I don't hold any grudges. My dad and I, we talked long and hard about this. We don't hold any grudges against this man. He was just doing what he had to do. It was either shot or be shot. So you either submit or you don't. And that's where I refuse to submit to tyrants. I don't want to be him either, but is there a winner and is there a loser out of all of those? I don't know. But anyway, do your research, because once this information is gone, it's gone forever, and you'll never get it back, and it'll just be paper and words. It'll have no meaning. Take care.